Hi lovelies, you're welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome back and I appreciate. Let's make this beautiful free gown with rope at the back, okay? So for this tutorial, I'm making use of 2 yards of my chiffon fabric. So I'm going to slit it into two, giving me one yards, okay? So I'm going to use 1 yard to cut the back, 1 yard to cut the front. Now I've gone ahead to fold the 1 yard on fold and fold the other 1 yard on fold. So I'm going to use one for the front, one for the back, but I place it on fold on top each other. Okay, so I'm making use of 35 inches for the length of this gown. Then I'll add extra 1 inch for the folding, that is the hemming of the down part, making 36 inches. So now I'm just going to go ahead and measure that 36 inches, I mean to say. So after I was done measuring the 36 inches, I will come to this point here and I will mark this out. Okay, so this line that I'm marking out will also be my shoulder line and my starting point. Okay, so after doing this, the next thing I will do is to divide my shoulder measurement by 2, which is 16 inches divided by 2. I have 8 inches. So on this line I have here, I'm going to mark the 8 inches here, and then I'll be making use of 3 inches for the neck wideness and then 3 inches for the neck depth. Okay, this is how deep I want the neck of the front to be. You can go below that 3 inches by 5 inches or 4 inches. So from this 8 inches point here, I'm coming down by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope. So I'll just connect it like so. Now from this shoulder slope point, I will come down by my armhole circumference divided by 2, which gives me 8.5 inches. I will mark the point then and I'll rule a straight line across like so. So after connecting it like so, the next thing I will do is to extend this line. So this line here is my chest line. Now I'm going to divide my armhole circumference by 2. I'll get the midpoint, and then from that midpoint, I'm going to go in by half of an inch. And the next thing I will do is to take my bust circumference divided by 4. I will mark the point there. Then I'll go ahead to connect the front armhole like so. After doing that, the next thing I will do is to come down from my chest line by 2 inches. And then I will rule a straight line across like so. Now from that 2 inches point I came down by, I'll still mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Okay, now I'm adding extra 1.5 inches for the allowance that I want for this dress. Okay, now the next thing I will do is to connect from that point like this to the down to the hemline. Okay, so I'm just going to connect it like this to the hemline in like a flame method, okay, or like an A shape. So I'm making use of 2 yards. If you're making use of more than 2 yards, you can go ahead and still like make this to be more A shape. Okay, so I'm just making use of the 2 yards that I have with me. Now after connecting it like so, the next thing I'm going to do is just to connect it like this. The next thing I will do is to mark out my waist measurement from my shoulder point. So I'm marking my waist measurement, which is 18 inches, and then I'll rule a straight line across like so. So after doing that, the next thing I will do is to cut out the neck of this dress, and then I'll go ahead to cut the shoulder part, leaving half of an inch for stitching allowance. Now after doing that, I'm just going to connect the back armhole. So I'm connecting the back armhole like so. Okay, now I'll go ahead to cut this with the back armhole first. Okay, leaving half inch stitching allowance both at the side and the armhole area. So after cutting this out, from the waistline on the side, I'm going to notch it, and then from that notched point I will come down by 7 inches to get the pocket wideness. Okay, another way you can do this is to come down from the waistline by 1.5 inches before you measure your 7 inches for the pocket wideness. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and remove the front piece for me to cut out the back neck depth. Okay, so I'm just coming down by 10 inches for the neck depth, and then I will go ahead to connect this in a V shape. Okay, that is a V pattern. So after I'm done connecting the V pattern, that is the V shape that I want, I'll go ahead to cut this, leaving half of an inch stitching allowance. Okay, now I'm going to remove that for the back piece. Now for the front piece, I'll go ahead to cut out the armhole shape for the front piece. So I'm doing this, leaving half of an inch stitching allowance. Okay, and this is all for the front piece. I'll go ahead to cut out the pocket. So for the pockets, I have 4 pieces of this. Remember, I'm making use of 2 yards for this dress. So I'm just going to make sure that I have 7 inches for the wideness of the pocket, and then half inch stitching allowance on the top and also the down part here. Okay. So after getting what I want here for the pocket, the next thing is to cut the sleeve. Okay, so I went ahead to fold this by 4. Okay, I fold this by 2 and then I fold it again by 4. Now I'm just making use of what is left of this my material. Okay, so I'm cutting this in form of like a flay hand. Okay, and I'm making use of 21 inches for the length. Then I added extra 1 inch for the folding of the down part. Okay, so I'll go ahead and mark out that 22 inches for the sleeve. Now from that point here, I'm going to come down by 5 inches. I'll go ahead and rule a straight line across like so. So the next thing I will do is to connect this from this first line here on the folded part, meeting the second line on the side. Okay, now I'll go ahead and divide my armhole circumference divided by 2. I have 8 inches. After dividing 16 inches by 2, I'm going to mark it on the second line I have here, and then I'll go ahead to connect it like so. The next thing I will do is to divide from that point to this point here by 2, and I'll get the midpoint. So after getting the midpoint, I'll go ahead to connect it like so. So this is just like the normal way we connect our sleeve. Okay, now after doing that, I'll go ahead to add the allowance of 1.5 inches, which is what I have there already. So I'll go ahead and connect it like so in a little bit flay pattern, because my material is not enough. You know, I'm making use of 2 yards for this gown. So if you want yours more flay, you have to make your material that you're using to cut the sleeve to be more wider. Okay, now after doing that for the sleeve, I will go ahead to cut out what I'm going to use to turn the neck line of the front and the back. So remember, when cutting, what you are going to use to turn the neck line is going to be on fold. Okay, so this is me cutting what I'm going to use to turn the front neck line. Okay, and it is on fold. Now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out the strap for the back. So I'm cutting out about 3 inches wideness of strap for the back, and I'm cutting out 2 pieces of it, and then whatever length that you want to make use of, maybe 20 inches, 15 inches for the length. Okay, so after doing this, I'm going to start sewing. So this is my front piece. I'm going to face this right side facing the right side, and then I'll go ahead to stitch with half of an inch. After I'm done stitching with half of an inch, I'll go ahead to notch this point out. Okay, and then I'll go ahead to top stitch on the material that I used to turn the neck line. Okay, so I'll go ahead to top stitch on it. So after I was done top stitching on it, I'm going to be weaving this piece that I used to turn the neck area. Okay, but you're not going to be weaving it. Please go ahead and fold it by half of an inch and so. Okay, now after doing that, I'm going to be working on the strap for the back. Okay, so I'll go ahead to fold this like so, and then I will turn it to the front part of it. Now this is it for the back pattern. I'll go ahead, this is my strap as well. I'll go ahead to place it like this. Okay, so the part that I did not close is where I'm going to place like this. Okay, so I'm leaving half-inch stitching allowance at the shoulder, then I will place the strap like so. So I'm going to place this the right side of the fabric. After placing it, I will pin this down, and then I will bring the piece that I'm going to use to turn the back neckline. So I'm going to be placing it right side facing the right side like this. I'll go ahead to sew with 1/2 inch all around. So after I was done sewing this with 1/2 inch all around, I'll go ahead to notch this out. So after notching the point, I'll go ahead to top stitch it on the piece that I used to turn the back neckline. Now after I'm done top stitching it, this is what I have. I'll go ahead to join the two shoulder. You can see that the strap is already attached to the dress itself. Okay, now I'll go ahead to place my pocket first before attaching the shoulders with the front pattern. Okay, so now this is two piece that I'm going to use for the front, two piece I'm going to use for the back. Okay, now I'll go ahead to place it like so, right side facing the right side, from one notched point to the other notched point on the side. Okay, now I'm going to pin this down because I'm working with chiffon, so it's very important that you pin it down. Okay, now I'm going to pin this down and then I'll sew with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done pinning this down, I'll go ahead to stitch it and then I'll top stitch on it. So I already did that for the front piece as well. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to join the shoulders. Now to join the shoulders, I'm going to place it like so, and then I'm just going to tie this rope in place. The next thing I will do is to face this right side facing the right side like so, and then I'll go ahead to close the shoulder this way. So I'm making sure that both stitching of the front pattern and the back pattern, that is the joining between the piece and the main fabric that we used to turn the neckline, is facing each other for the front piece and the back piece. Then I'll go ahead, place it this way. I'm going to pin this down because this is chiffon I'm working with. Then I'll go ahead to sew with 1/2 inch. I'm going to repeat it again. I'll go ahead and bring the front pattern. I'm going to be closing these two, joining between the piece that I used to turn the neckline and the actual dress itself. So I'm going to join it like this, and I'll go ahead to sew this, okay, with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done joining the two shoulders with 1/2 inch, I'm going to be placing the sleeve to the dress. Okay, so the middle point of the sleeve is going to be facing the joining at the shoulder like this, and then I'll go ahead to pin this down and sew with 1/2 inch all round. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other sleeve as well. Now after I'm done fixing the sleeve, the next thing I will do is to close the two sides. Okay, so I'm going to be closing the two sides like this. I'll go ahead to pin this down from the sleeve all the way to the hemline, and then I will sew with 1/2 inch. So whatever I did here, I'm going to repeat on the other side as well. So after I'm done closing the two sides with 1/2 inch, I went ahead to turn this to the main front of this fabric, and then this is how it is. Okay, so I also went ahead to fold the sleeve length. Okay, I did that before shaping the two sides. Okay, now this is it for my pocket. The next thing I will do is to fold this down with 1 inch that I left while I was cutting it. Okay, so I'll go ahead to fold this up, and this will be all for this dress. So lovelies, I've gone ahead to do that. If you find this tutorial very helpful, please go ahead to subscribe, comment, share and like.